And the weekend, David Seymour did, I guess, what they're calling as their election year interview. So I don't know whether that means this is the once of and they're not back again after this. But his election year interview on the Newshub Nation. And of course, as was expected, he came out pretty hard and pretty strong over things like the Māori Health Authority, and not much pushback at all. You'd have to say if you weren't like us sort of in the weeds on this, or if you weren't like you watching right now and took an interest in this, you'd probably look at this and go, he eviscerated that host. It wasn't a very good showing of pushing back against a lot of talking points that a lot of us have heard a lot of times.
And sort of health policy. Māori live 7 years less than non-Māori. It's a given fact. So tell me what your plan is to reduce that.
Well, first of all, let's just put that fact in a little bit of context. You go back 70 years, there was actually a 20-year...
Sorry, did you just make a big sigh already?
Yes, because I know where he's going with this.
Gap between Maori and non-Maori life expectancy in New Zealand. That means that in the last 70 years, the gap is closed by 13. Maori life expectancy has increased more than twice as rapidly as non-Maori life expectancy. And I think people forget that. I think often there's a lot of despondency. People forget the wider context.
But it shouldn't be that way now. We are a modern...
Second issue is, what do we do to continue...
See what I mean? Who's running the interview? Like, who's running the interview?
Closing that gap. Well, I would make the point that if we're going to have healthcare, it should be targeted based on the needs of people. I don't accept that the only way we can target healthcare assistance is by lazily, racially profiling people, and there's two reasons why that's wrong.
Okay,
the first is that if you start saying that a person is first and foremost defined by their race, you miss things about them. You miss people who are Maori and perfectly healthy, thank you very much. You look at...
But if you're Māori and perfectly healthy, you don't need the Māori Health Authority to help you with a health issue. So what are you missing? That person won't be in the system.
He's missing so much.
I know. Well, let him get to the end of his first quote-unquote point. And this is about another 5 minutes overall, Cho, but we'll jump in a second and have a start.
At the implication of these Prezi cards being handed out to Maori expectant mothers. The implication is that mothers who are Maori need to be bribed to come in and check on their kid. That's wrong. It may be true in some cases, but it's also true in some cases of women who are not Maori.
These stats don't lie, though, do they? These stats do not lie.
Well, actually, they get misrepresented. And if you...
The thing is, the host here is not necessarily wrong, but the no pushback came because what David Seymour just did then by saying facts get misrepresented actually is correct as well. And when I say that it seems that the host wasn't prepared, it's not a good showing from Newshub.
You give me a second. The second way that you get it wrong is that actually there are non-Maori people who do have the need to have multiple comorbidities, but are also missed because your targeting is based on ethnicity. So while you're right, the stats don't lie, they miss two types of people: Maori people who don't need the help, and non-Maori people that do.
Let's take that back. But there is inequity.
Right, we can jump in here, Chewy, because I mean, like, you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to go back to our tried and true that it's not, David Seymour doesn't come across as racist because he talks about inequity from race. He comes across that way because he only talks about equity when it comes to race. No other protected classes. I'm going to get to that point shortly, but I'll give you first crack at it.
There has been so many studies over decades, and they all come back to isn't it crazy that Māori are always disadvantaged, and it's just a mystery. Is that we can't work it out. It's because our system is European-centric. It is white supremacist. I know people get all fucking tight and nervous when you use those two words together, but it is. Our health sector is. The outcomes for Māori in the health system are terrible, just as they are in the justice system, just as they are in the education system. And Seymour will stand on his little soapbox and go, oh, yeah, but, everything's equal and we can't favour one. You can look at going, hey, look, there's a trend here. It seems that Māori get consistently bad outcomes with what we're doing. Maybe we should do something to redress that. And that could be more money, or that could be maybe we need to look at maybe a a system that's not the same as we've always had it.
Yeah.
It's maybe we do need to start early, like we have been talking about for weeks. Is it if you want to change the shitty broken cycle that people have in their lives, you jump in early. It's all of these things. And this is what Seymour misses every time by going, well, actually, I don't like racial profiling. He misses it. And the media miss this because they keep treating ACT like they are a tiny, minor, irrelevant party, and they're not anymore. So he needs to get the same scrutiny and criticism that Hipkins and Luxon get, and he gets a fucking hospital pass on so many interviews.
Well, and one of the problems with that is because of the connection to Jenna Lynch on TV3 as well, on Newshub. Being married to one of the chief advisors is I don't care if Newshub and Discovery says, we're happy with that. This is, show me any time that she's ever pushed back against them. It's just not, you can't find it. If I asked them to send me some imagery so I could share it with my audience to give the sense that she wasn't, on some level have a bias there, and they either refused to or they couldn't. Either way, I didn't receive anything from them other than a generic statement. Here's the thing.
I was half pie expecting Seymour to pivot into well, actually, before Europeans arrived, these ignorant savages were living in caves, and we've blessed them with TV and takeaways, and it's their own fault after that. It was so close.
The thing, and this is the thing that I would love to talk to Mr. Seymour about, and I've contacted their office, and their office said, yeah, well, he'll come and talk to you, and then I've heard nothing. So I doubt that they will, but if they do, and if they see this, I've already said this to Mr. Seymour's face anyway, so I'd say it again. It's not that he wants equity when it comes to race. That's all he ever talks about. Now, race is a protected group, like under the Human Rights Act. But there are lots of other protected groups, and Seymour never asks for equity or equality in those other groups, right? And when it comes to the Maori Health Authority, what we want to do is provide the best possible healthcare to the people who need it, even if those people are a race. So, for example, there's a thing called sickle cell disease, Chewy. We've probably all heard of that. Some people may not be aware that mostly hits people with melanin in their skin. People of Middle Eastern and African origins are the people who get sickle cell disease more than anybody else. So are you going to go and say, well, we'll treat people with sickle cell disease, or are you going to go, we just need to put the money into these two races because that's where sickle cell disease is? It gets the same outcome, right? But he's dog whistling, talking about we don't want to go and do the area of race, but we will go after sickle cell. Whereas both get the same outcome. And also cystic fibrosis, for example, is mostly European people. Now, he'll be saying, well, we'll go after the cystic fibrosis. Now, if you went after the European groups that suffer it most of all, you're going to get the same outcome. But he's playing a dog whistle and playing games with it. And then when it comes to other protected groups, okay, so should we spread evenly, for example, breast cancer, or should females get that? Should females get the funding for breast cancer? Because that's where it happens, because that would also be discriminatory based on sex, but he doesn't care about that because he sees a need for it. Prostate cancer in men, right? Males. Prostate cancer in males. Because did you know that females can get prostate cancer? It's slightly different, but it's the same cancer. And men can get breast cancer. But I think it's also okay to put the money into females for breast cancer and males for prostate cancer, yet that would be discriminatory based on sex. This goes on and on and on and on, there is different medical outcomes for people of different ages. There is different medical outcomes for people of different disabilities. These things are all protected classes under the Human Rights Act. Yet the only one he gives a shit about, the only one he ever wants to see leveled out is race. And that's why it comes across as racist. And that's why it dog whistles to white supremacists, Chewy.
I would love to sit Seymour down and go, at what point were Māori and Pākehā treated equally? At what point did we have the same starting point? What year? What decade even? Because it's always like, oh no, everything needs to be equal. Everything's only equal if we had the same starting point, and if someone wasn't hobbled before they even got out to the track. Like, it's that whole thing of equality or equity. And Seymour's got no answer for that.
Yeah.
Because you can't piss off your base.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's play a bit more of this conversation. And then what we're also going to do is, actually, maybe we're pretty much done with him. Are we done with him? Maybe we're done with him. What
Unfortunately not, but
we'll
we'll
go to
come
the
back
panel.
of a different show.
There was a panel afterwards talking about it, including Sue Bradford and some others. And this was their take on what David Seymour had to say. Obviously, there was a lot more in the interview. If you want to go and see it, go and check it for yourself. But, no, I will play you one other bit, though, because I wanted to play the bit where he kind of had to claim up because he admitted to liking partnership. But this is what the panel said afterward. This is just 2 minutes we're going to play.
David Seymour riding high. Is this his sort of moment?
I think you're right about that. It's absolutely terrifying when you hear,
From your point of view.
from the point of view of the people I work with and care about in this country, the fact that he accepts that wealth divide and would actually seek to increase it with a low flat tax and with a heap of their other policies.
Well, he says he doesn't resent wealthy people. He does not that he's trying to increase the tax.
His policies do, and if you look in the detail of welfare and policing and everything else, it's all about slamming into Māori, slamming into low income and no income people, slamming into beneficiaries. His vision is of a society where the rich get richer and
he would obviously dispute what you're saying. He's saying it's a different way to bring everybody up.
I also don't like how this interviewer is now sort of both sidesing it. Like he's
dreadful.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, it's okay to be an interviewer and go. That's actually what he thinks. You don't. But the people kind of going, well, I'm sure he wouldn't say that. So you don't have to both sides this thing. It's actually, you can actually just leave it. It's okay.
Clear, even from that short interview, much less reading their policies. And he's just calling out to those people that are going to the joint bachelor meetings, the anti-co-government.
All right, so you're saying that, I mean, he denies it.
Dog whistling.
You say he's dog whistling. Oh, you're huffing there, actually.
No, because actually, I think there is something wrong with Act's tax stance. And, for example, you've got a whole lot of parties in Parliament, National, the Greens, they're all in favour of indexing tax rates, right? So that they're inflation-proofed. And ACT Party is against it in principle. And so the reason the ACT Party is against it is because most of the tax cut would go to lower earners. So there is something to be said for the fact that the ACT Party is very, very focused on the moneyed interests in the country.
Okay. And in terms of it's his debate around co-governance and the treaty, I mean, he denies that it's dog whistling. He's actually just a vision for the future.
Well, on some level, it's not dog whistling. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's not really whistling anymore, is it? I mean, I think that the National Party are whistling because they have to be seem to be a bit more centrist, but I think ACT has just taken it on board and they're just shouting it from the fucking rooftop.
Future of a unified New Zealand.
Look at the language he's using, racial profiling. Just these kind of things that trip off the tongue that, as Sue is saying, these are dog whistles to the kinds of people. I mean, I don't think he himself is like that, but he's using the phraseology that appeals to people like that.
Do you think that's deliberate? Do you believe that's...
Mr. Luxon's doing it as well, and it's
so political opportunism, right?
Absolutely.
So there you go. Now I will play for you this other. I'll have to cue it up as we go in the end of this clip, though. I was going to end it at 8 minutes 10, so I'll go to about 7 minutes when he's talking about schooling, and then we'll get this because it's quite a nice. There is one little thing that this interviewer does quite well and calls him out on being pro-partnership when he's constantly talking about being anti-partnership.
That's correct, isn't it?
That's right.
But we are a signatory to the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Peoples' Rights, and that recognises self-determination, doesn't it?
Well, I think that was a mistake. I think that...
Terrible answer by Seymour because he's saying that was wrong. It doesn't matter that was wrong. That's the current standing.
Right. Whole declaration is wrong. And I'll tell you how we in New Zealand, I mean, first of all, the idea that New Zealand, one of the most equitable, liberal, democratic countries in the history of humanity, should be dictated to by the United Nations, where everybody gets an equal vote, even though some of the people voting for these motions are people with the most grotesque human rights abuses there are. Yeah, I mean, let's throw that out.
Yeah, okay, but these rights have been recognised by courts, by previous governments. They're all entrenched in New Zealand society. They are recognised, and you're saying, let's get rid of that.
Well, you started this interview by arguing that they're not working.
Yes,
our argument...
It's just I mean, if we accept... I'll just finish this point. If these are all accepted, and you're coming from this particular point of view, it's political opportunism in this election campaign, really, isn't it?
Not at all. And if you'd allow me to explain where we're coming from, you'll see that that's untrue. So if you look at the question of devolving services, ACT has been at the forefront of this. When we had nearly no political capital, what did we do? We created partnership schools, kura-horua. What did partnership schools do? They allowed people from each community to put forward ideas to better engage kids in their community from their education.
So you do believe in partnership?
Do you think, Simon, we could just finish more than 2 sentences
Oh,
in a row?
please find that frame. Please, that face. I need it. No, there's a little bit. He's just. He just looks like he's got. Oh no, it's happening again. Yeah.
So I mean, credit where credit's due. I know we've been fairly harsh on Newshub tonight, but good question, good point back. Basically saying, so when it's your policy, and this is often what you'll find with the right, when it's your policy about adding more bureaucracy, it's not too much bureaucracy. When it's your policy about partnerships are okay. But it's when it's the other guys who are adding bureaucracy, that's bad. It's when the other guys are talking partnership, that's bad. So yeah, that was a credit where credit's due. That's a very good moment by the interviewer there.
I've seen that look before. Just trying to find it. Oh no, that's not it.
Has it got the thing you're looking for? Has it got an H on the forehead?
No, we've done that. Where is it? No, that's not it. There we go. I've seen it before, Pat. I've seen that look.
This look here.
Oh wait.
It's that same look. That's eerily similar.
He had to back away. So
very good.
Poor wee cupcake dog.
So there you go. It wasn't a good interviewer. The interviewer didn't do a good job. However, there was a couple of good moments, and I think it's fair that we show the good moments as well, so we don't sort of tear them a new one, so to speak.
I mean that's a big issue, right? Like in an election year, I want these guys that are interviewing these guys be on their A game.
Yeah.
I want them to be well researched. I want them to know, like, you're interviewing David Seymour. I want him to spend his week looking at David Seymour interviews and working out how he answers these things. And just like we've seen from Jack Tame so many times, just get them on the ropes and don't let them off. Don't let them run their talking points with no interference.
Yeah.
You know, you got to hold them to this stuff. This is what we as the electorate need to see.
Yeah. Very good. Thanks for the super chat, Planner. Planner Walk saying David Seymour looks like Kermit the Frog. Hey ho, Kermit the Frog here. That also sounds a bit like Jordan Peterson, doesn't it? Hey ho, you have to go and tie your beds. Make your bed. Everything will be okay.
Communism's coming to get you.
Communism's coming to get me. So thanks for the super chat there, Planner.